Welcome. Welcome, Teresa. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for
How
having
are
me.
you?
I'm
Yeah,
good,
of course.
thank you.
Of course. So before I ask you to introduce yourself, no pressure on this, but really you are the flagship for all of these conversations. Now, what I mean by that is the first two, which I know you haven't looked, which you haven't watched, which I think is a good thing, actually. Um, they were more kind of introductions, sort of tiptoeing along. You're going to be really the first person that talks about kind of a specific topic and what she does day to day, or kind of the things that you look upon and what you do and how you view life and all of those kinds of things. So thank you for the trust. Thank you for making the time. And hopefully it didn't make you too nervous now that I turn it over to you and ask you to introduce yourself.
Never. You know my philosophy. It's everything flows into the next thing, so it's all good. So my name is Teresa Bruni, and for the past 15 years, I've been working as a teacher and a healer. And I specialize in subconscious change. Because that's where most people get hung up, is limiting subconscious beliefs. I love helping people live their best life. I love helping people clear the path and peel back those layers so that they can like, reacquaint themselves with their true self, the person
Yeah.
that they were born as before all the programming got put in. Although my favorite clients are those who are struggling with their health,
Okay.
and helping them to realign their mind, body, and spirit so that they can heal. So that's me, and that's what I do.
Thank you. Now, this part I didn't tell you beforehand about how you were introducing yourself, but I wanted to ask you to do that, not just to put you on the spot and feel like you had to do the work, but because I, in my own way, wanted you to be your own advocate. The same way I think you feel about, and you can tell us more about this, how you feel that each person needs to be their own advocate for healthcare. So what I mean by that is I could have, mentioned the books that you've written, or, the accolades that you've had, and the amount of time that you've spent on yourself and on helping other people. But I felt like this moment in time, and I want to say this to everyone who may watch this moment in time, even if you watch for just a couple seconds or a couple minutes, Teresa and I will probably go pretty long. So I get that. You may not watch all of it, and that's okay. But there might be a piece of this and a piece of what Teresa said today, introducing herself, that makes a difference and helps people. So Teresa, that's why I asked that, and hopefully that was okay.
Well,
Um,
and thank
yeah.
you, because I forget, we often forget about all of our accomplishments. So I forgot to mention my 5 published books.
and that's okay. I
and
mean,
and my
what
long list of certifications,
right.
because I'm just living my life, and that's what most people we're just living our life, right? And we kind of forget that
Yeah.
we've done all this stuff.
Well, and that's really in some ways exactly what I mean by being your own advocate, that
Right.
when you can introduce yourself, I think you're explaining what brought you to this moment right here today. And sure, those things contributed to you and your experiences. But right now, today, in your journey, in March of 2025, that's what you felt was the thing to put forth in the
Mhm.
universe. And I appreciate you for that. Before we jump into kind of some questions I have for you, I'd like to just right up front, can you tell everyone that's watching here how they can contact you? What's the best way to get in touch with you? If they're interested to hear more, they might listen for a couple minutes. I'd like to just put that right up front for
The
you and for
best way
them.
to reach me is at my website, which is my name, teresabruni.com.
Okay.
And there's just a massive amount of information on my website. There are also links to my YouTube channel and my X/Twitter account. Um, and there's a contact form there, of course. So that's the
Okay.
best way to reach me.
Perfect. And when I load this to Rumble and to YouTube, I'll put your name in there. I'll put your website in there so they have all that.
Yes.
And of course, for anyone who wants to make comments or, you can reach out to me directly. I can get that information to you. So great, thank you for the introduction. The title of this show, and I know you haven't seen the introduction, so I'll kind of give it to you, although you probably can guess a little bit, but it's Conversations and Higher Vibrations. Anything that is helping people in whatever way each of us thinks we can to vibrate higher. And I would like to ask you, what do those words mean to you? What does higher vibrations mean to you, Teresa, today sitting here?
So, actually, one of my certifications is as an energy leadership master practitioner. And energy leadership breaks down the vibrational scale to basically 7 steps.
Yeah.
So the bottom level, level 1, is victim mentality,
Okay.
and you're not vibrating well at all at that level. I mean, you're vibrating, but it's an anti-manifestation
Right.
vibration. The
Right.
highest level is number 7, and that's where we go when we meditate. Or for me, it's looking out at the stars and seeing
Yeah.
how expansive the universe is. Looking at a new baby,
Yeah.
um, when you're in that higher vibration, that's when your immune system is turned on, and your ability to manifest is turned on, and then that's really where the magic happens. So that's, to me, that's what higher vibration means. Now, you don't always, what we teach in energy leadership is you can't live at level 7. So,
Right.
even a
We're
monk,
still in 3D. We're still physical to a certain extent,
right?
right?
And
So,
even
yeah.
a monk is gonna stub his toe or break his sandal at some point, right? So the
Right.
goal is not to live in level 7, but the goal
Yeah.
is to try to reach level 7 at least once a day,
Yeah.
however that works for you.
Yeah.
Because it's not an all or nothing. We're here living this physical existence, and we're actually meant to experience all of those levels. Sometimes, every one of us sometimes falls into that level 1 energy where we
Yeah.
feel like we have no control over life.
Do you
Um,
think that's where the fight or flight response comes from? Is it
that's
level
exactly it.
one? Okay.
It,
Okay.
it's technically it's anything below level 4.
Yeah.
It's anything below level 4. You're in fight or flight, which turns your immune system off.
Right.
Okay, because all of your energy has to go toward that ability to fight or flee.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
No, I appreciate you explaining that and what higher vibrations means to you. I'm going to come back actually to your levels here in a little bit, but if I can, I'd like to take you in a little different track for a moment. That's all right.
sure. Hmm.
So you've mentioned this several times directly to me, and I've known you for what, maybe 5, 6 months, maybe more than that. It feels like a lot longer,
Yeah.
but I think in physical time, it's probably been that amount of time. Um, I, I am very excited and would not have imagined then that we'd be talking like this. So that just is an awesome moment. So thank you for that. You've mentioned this a few times over the course of that period. You have described your own journey through illness and sickness, and that you have had, I'm going to say, a strong desire to take your life back, whatever that means to you, which, please share from sickness. And you're helping people that maybe they see that they want to help themselves too, but they might not have quite that same initiative or maybe the energy, whatever it is, to pull themselves up to the area that you did. And I'm not saying that you haven't had teachers or practitioners or other things that you've maybe leaned on, people or resources, but it seems like from listening to you and hearing you that you had this just intuitive desire to want to be well. Can you tell me about that a little bit and tell the audience?
Sure. So you're touching on a topic, or you're allowing me to touch on a topic that is very special to my heart, and that is abuse. And in my case, it was childhood abuse,
Okay.
all forms of it, um, which then manifested into an abusive marriage, that was pretty much the breaking point for my
Yeah.
immune system. And and while I was coming out of that marriage, I became chronically ill.
Yeah.
Um, it took 2 years to get a diagnosis. You know this because you read my book. so
I did.
so for the first
One,
two
well, one
years,
of them. I read one of them.
right, the latest one.
Right.
And
Right.
so for the first 2 years, I walked around not knowing what was wrong with me, not knowing if
Yeah.
I was going to die, just not having a diagnosis.
Right.
And then I finally received a diagnosis. I was out of my work, full disability. So I had left
Yeah.
my corporate job, which I loved. I loved that job. Um, and I gave medical science 7 years of my life. And
Wow.
I wasn't getting better,
Yeah.
And so at that point, um, I woke up to the fact that something had to be done differently. And
Yeah.
so I took matters into my own hands, and I started searching for answers to help me get well. Um,
You became your own advocate.
I
Is
became
what?
my own advocate. Yeah. And so, fast forwarding, long story short, what I discovered was that I had a lot of emotional trauma that needed to be cleared so
Yeah.
that I could turn my immune system back on and allow healing to occur. So that took an additional 3 years. We're talking a long time ago. We're
Uh,
talking
I
we're talking
understand.
pre-internet. So I couldn't just
I,
go.
I will. I didn't mean to cut you off. I will tell you. So I'll be 44 next month. So I was alive at least for a period of time before the internet was hatched. So
Yeah.
I do know what you're speaking to.
Yeah. So when all this was happening in my life, my career, I was running mainframe accounting
Yep.
systems. Okay. The PCs were just coming out, and we didn't
Right.
quite have the internet yet. So it
Yeah.
wasn't as easy for me to just go Google something, and figure out, how do I fix this or how do I fix that?
Yeah.
But I found my way, and it took me 3 years to recover. I decided what I would do and not do. So, I mean, at one point I had a stack of prescriptions that were like an inch tall of
Yeah.
drugs that doctors handed me, and I'd go home and I'd look them up in the
Right.
PDR. It's called the physician's desk reference, and
Right.
you know, it's about this thick, and it has every drug in there. I would look up the drug and I would decide whether or not I wanted to take it.
Yeah.
At one point, the doctors recommended a physical therapy program. And
Okay.
so that I was all over. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll go to physical therapy and help my body become stronger. That program, that was at Kessler Institute in New Jersey, which is the same place that Christopher Reeves went after he broke his neck.
Yeah.
A very prestigious physical therapy center. And the day I walked in there, I could not even do 10 minutes on the treadmill without resting.
Wow.
And 6 months later, when I walked out, I was able to swim a half hour, swim laps for a half hour.
So that portion, I guess, of that journey, to a certain extent at least, worked. Do I hear that?
The physical therapy, well, there are a lot of things that worked, but
I
the
understand.
point I'm trying to make is when the doctors said, I think you should do this or I think you should do that,
Yeah.
I'm the one who made the final decision.
I understand. Yeah. Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you for clarifying that.
yeah.
So did you want to explain anything more about that? Can I take you in a little
Well,
bit
I just want to
direction?
add that I went back to work full time, which is what I wanted. I wanted my life
Yeah.
back. I had a good life
Yeah.
before I got sick.
Right.
And I was stronger, and I was a better person.
Yeah.
And I was stronger. I hardly ever get sick. because I know how it all works now.
Right.
And so my passion, really, my passion is to help other people have a similar journey to
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Um, so you haven't mentioned it yet here, but there's a couple things that I want to kind of tease out from that, if it's okay.
Hmm.
So I want to replay back what I think I'm hearing, which is the physical. I'm going to call them symptoms, but I know it's illness and sickness. But the physical symptoms, it sounds like you're saying, yes, you should treat them. You should become your own advocate. But underneath all of that, those are symptoms that are representative of something that's either tied to emotional, spiritual, whatever you like, that's kind of causing that. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, so you're kind of blending the two together a little bit. So in a nutshell, the body is the messenger.
Okay.
Now, Western medicine doesn't look at it that way. Western
Yeah.
medicine looks at the body as this mechanical thing. Oh, your knee's broken, we'll replace it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
uh,
Right.
um,
Like you're looking at a car. Yeah. Okay. Well,
exactly,
right.
exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Okay. I got it.
Um,
I
but the
got it.
body is actually a messenger, and different symptoms point us to the emotional root. So, perfect simplistic example. I can
Yeah.
remember my mother when I was a child. My mother would say, "I'm so angry I can't see straight," right? Which is true when you stop and think about it. When you get so angry, your vision just like shuts down, and that's where the trouble starts, because you're not focused, you're not centered, you're not in that higher vibration.
Yeah.
Okay, and so then,
Level one. You're in level
right,
one.
so then
Yeah.
maybe you have, well, actually, anger is level two.
Okay. Okay.
Victim mentality is level one. Anger is level two.
Got it.
Um, And so that might open you up to cutting yourself in the kitchen or having a car accident, because you're not centered and you're not focused.
Right.
Um, but the body, not only is it a messenger, but it's also fairly simplistic. So problems with the eyes can be an indication that you're not willing to see things for how they really are. Problem with the ears is, could symbolize you don't want to hear.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
The
Okay.
neck, the
Yeah.
neck,
Yeah.
stiff neck symbolizes an unwillingness to see both sides. Shoulders, carrying the weight of the world,
Right.
and so on down the entire body. Um, but then we also have the organs, and different organs hold different emotions. So, for instance, the liver stores anger,
Okay.
and so, isn't it interesting that alcoholics set out to destroy their liver,
Right.
which is where all their anger is stored. They're
Yeah.
trying. They don't even know that they're doing it, but essentially they're trying to shut off that pain.
Right.
So does that help answer the question?
Yeah, it does. And it kind of takes me to something I wanted to ask you about. So, I've learned from you, you've mentioned that illness and sickness, and this is where I was trying to go and didn't do a great job of it, that you feel that it's not your own body betraying you. It's actually sending you a message.
Hmm.
And I think you've talked about that to an extent here. Is there anything else you want to kind of expand on with that, as far as it's not turning its back on you, your body. It's trying to get your attention.
Yeah,
Could you, is there
you
anything you
said
want to
it.
add to that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, no, you said it perfectly. So what we're accustomed to doing in with Western medicine is, oh, I have this symptom. I have a
Yeah.
fever. Um, Let me take a pill and turn off that
Right.
symptom.
Yeah.
When in reality, that symptom has a message for you. And yeah, you can
Right.
turn it off, but trust me, it's going to come back some other way.
Somewhere else it'll present itself. Right.
It's going to
Right.
present itself some other way. Exactly.
Right. Oh,
Until you
thank you.
deal with what you need to deal with. And
Right.
everybody has stuff, some have more than others, but no one can say, "Oh, I don't have any stuff.
Right.
That's not me."
Right. So you've kind of led me to the next question. It's almost as if you knew it, which has been happening actually. Last episode it happened with George. It's happening with you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about an excerpt from your latest blog, which was about a week ago or so, and it was called "The Hidden Cost of Judgment and How to Break Free." And in that, and I want to hear it in your own words, not me just kind of replaying what I think, because I want the audience to hear it from you. You brought up this explanation of judgment versus assessment, and kind of the key difference of that. And the one thing before I turn it over to you to kind of expand on to the level you want to, is you actually give a Bible verse in Proverbs. You mentioned that the discerning heart seeks knowledge, but the mouth of a fool feeds on folly. So you're encouraging, what you said there was encouraging thoughtful evaluation. So a opposition between judgment and assessment. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So, so as you read in the blog, during my coach training, this topic came up. Judgment. Judgment
Yeah.
is defined as deeming something to be either right or wrong, good or bad.
Right.
And that was difficult for me to comprehend. I mean, we all say things like, "Boy, that food was really bad," or
Right.
or "That person is really bad." Um, um, but once I got my head wrapped around it, then I could see judgment really gets in our way, especially in today's world. If you look at social media, you'll see that everybody, well, I can never say everybody, right? A lot of people are judging this person. This
Yeah.
person isn't doing their job. This person is bad. That person's wonderful. And so again, what it does is it shuts down that perceptual lens,
Right.
which is the lens through which we see the world. And when that lens is shut down, we're not seeing things clearly.
Yeah.
So
What would
being
you?
willing to give people the benefit of the doubt,
Yeah.
opening that lens and saying, what might I not be seeing? What's here that I might be missing?
Yeah.
Why might that person be acting that way? And where can I provide some grace in seeing this situation differently? And it
So
and it opens up a whole new world.
yeah. No, I can imagine. I mean, I want to touch on social media a little bit later, but I will say, for me, you and I interact on social media on X. That's how we met, which I think is beautiful. I've been on for about a year on X. There was other things in the past and don't matter. Those are my own details and not, this is about you. But I've found myself evolving, and I think I met you on the earlier part of that evolution. Like I kind of started out probably as maybe a lot of people do, geopolitical stuff, sort of travesties of the world. And I understand that they're important and that they're real. Um, I started to feel hollow from that and started to just naturally move away to just, without realizing it, I think internally I was thinking from my heart, I want to vibrate higher. I want to go further than just some hope or talking about exposing things, if that's the right term. I really want to try to help even in an incremental way. So in part of that, what I kind of wanted to take this to is you mentioned these 7 levels of energy, and 1 being the lower, 7 being the higher, and you gave a couple of examples. So it seemed like a traffic jam, if you will, which is something that happens every day. That may pull you down. You'll tell me what level it is. I don't know it myself. And then you mentioned what 7 is. Do you tie that directly to judgment versus assessment, in your opinion? You'd mentioned about, withholding that judgment or I guess letting it dissolve. Can you talk a little bit about how you try to view that with your clients or people you talk to about the 7 levels? Does that make sense?
I'm not getting what exactly you want me to answer. So if you could rephrase that, that would help.
Sure. So if you feel like, or you can see with one of your clients that you're on a lower level of those 7 levels, how can you talk to them, or how can we talk to ourselves about judgment holding us there and keeping us there instead of moving to assessment? Does that help frame it a little better?
Yeah. So, so it's absolutely essential that we continually monitor ourselves to make sure that we're not in those lower levels for an extended period of time. As I
Yeah.
mentioned before, everybody falls into victim mentality. Everybody gets angry. Even Jesus got angry, and I have to remind my clients of that sometimes because they feel like, oh, if I get angry, I'm not spiritual. Yeah,
Right.
you are.
Okay.
Yeah, you're just having some anger. Um, um, it really depends on the person. So when I'm on social media and I'm scrolling through my feed,
Yeah.
this past week the negativity has been
It's been
pretty
amped
much
up.
off the charts. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So what do I do? How do I reconcile that?
Yeah.
Which reconciliation is level 3 on the emotional scale.
Okay.
I recognize that everyone is seeing the world through their own lens. Okay, and everything that we've been taught, everything that's been programmed into our minds via social media, news
Right.
media, all of it. All of that, it is directly affecting how these people are reacting and responding on social media.
Yeah.
Um, so I look at that and I recognize that rather than judging them.
Right.
And
Okay.
and I hope that something will happen that kind of turns the light on for them.
Right.
And then I get off because
Right.
because I can feel, I can
Yeah.
feel my energy coming down.
Right.
So I have to take breaks, which
Yeah.
I recommend that everyone does take breaks from
Yeah.
the news. I mean, we're fed information from a fire hose these
Yeah. We
days,
are. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Go
yeah.
ahead.
No, and so you need to take healthy breaks.
Yeah.
Literally leave your phone at home and go for a walk.
Right. Right.
So
Yes. Yet, George, the co-host of this show, we were talking last episode, and I asked him a little bit later on in our conversation, what are the top 3 things for any of us that are free? You can do it today to help vibrate higher. Just a real general question. And one of those 3 was get outside. If you're even in an apartment or in a city, just get outside and breathe air. If most places have at least one tree, you know, some people might think you're silly, but they might not even be paying attention because they're vibrating at a lower energy anyway. Go hug the tree if you want. Put your hand on it. Grab a hold of it if you want to. Just something to get outside. And to your point, putting your phone down or anything else, as simple as it sounds, could be a huge thing. And I mean, that's a testament to you saying, all right, I can feel I'm getting lower. I'm just going to walk away. I'm not going to try to, you know, prove someone wrong or tell someone about why I think they need to be doing something different. That's great. You also mentioned about kind of shifting out of that into comedy, which hadn't occurred to me until I heard you say it. Can you talk a little bit about that? Is it specific comedy? Is it you've laughed over this, conversation, and it's been pretty heavy, right? We're talking about a lot of things about health. So how do you incorporate humor into that for yourself or even for your clients?
So there's a chapter in my book about that, as you know. Back, I think it was like in '79, a journalist um, was diagnosed with a terminal illness,
Okay.
and he locked himself into a hotel room with funny movies and massive amounts of
Oh,
vitamin
okay. I
C.
didn't, I
And
wasn't sure where that was going to go. So I'm
yeah,
with
yeah,
you now. Okay. You
and
saw
he
my
and
face.
he he healed himself of his chronic illness.
Wow.
Um, there are many
Over what
ways.
time? Over what time period?
Oh, I don't remember. The book is
Okay.
called Anatomy of an Illness, by Norman Cousins. And I cite his book in my book, which I read his book when I was healing myself.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about watching a rerun of a sitcom that you've seen 27 times. We're talking
Okay.
about side-splitting comedy. and
Okay.
and we're so fortunate that we do have the internet today, because you can go out to YouTube and search for comedy.
Right.
I like, personally, I like the old classics.
Yeah.
There are a few modern day comedians that I really, really enjoy, and they will just have me laughing, until the tears are rolling down my face.
Right.
That's what you're looking for, because when you're laughing and you're happy, you can't be sad. You can't do
Right.
those two things at the same
You
time.
cannot. Right.
So comedy is one way to raise your vibration. Um, um, Music, turn on a happy song.
Yeah.
Um, what your co-host said, touching a tree. If I think what he was getting at there was grounding, because the
He
earth
was.
has a
Yep.
healing vibration.
Yep.
But what I just learned recently is, uh, you know, anything synthetic is going to prevent your feet from grounding to the earth. So
Right.
synthetic soles,
Yeah.
asphalt, things like that. But what I learned recently is, the earth's energy vibration will penetrate concrete, because concrete is kind of it's natural. It's made of
That's
sand,
true.
right?
I didn't think about
And
that.
and touching a plant is like a grounding wire.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, hug that tree. But if you're too embarrassed to hug the tree, just touch it.
Yeah.
I've been on walks in the park where I just kind of lean up against the tree. I just put my hand up and lean against the tree and
Right.
pretend like I'm looking at something, because that tree is like a grounding wire.
Right.
And so that's a
Yes.
great way to ground. Um, um, I don't recommend food unless you have weight that you want to gain. Um, Food is not necessarily a good way to bring your vibration higher.
Right.
But there's lots of ways. Again, watching a baby laugh. Who doesn't smile when they watch a baby giggle?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, the belly laugh from a baby is that's top notch.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure
So,
is.
so it's different for every person. But
Yeah.
maybe it's riding on a motorcycle and feeling the wind blow back your hair.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of ways to bring your vibration higher.
Right. Yeah. George was definitely where I saw he was going. Was definitely about grounding. The tree is connected to roots, which is connected to the earth. That's certainly something. He even gave an example of someone he knew, I guess, a while back that actually would hug a tree not only just with his arms, because he looked at it as a strength thing. This, not George, but this person, he would hug it with both hands and feet, like you're trying to like jump on and just hang on. And he
Yeah,
would equate it to strength. And I think without him realizing it, maybe even grounding, and if you look silly, look, kind of like I mentioned, if someone sees you, first off, if they judge you, that's their business, not yours. The
right.
second part is they might be in their phone. They might be thinking about what they're late to an appointment or to work or whatever else. Does it really matter that much what they think? In my opinion, it doesn't. And they might not even see it. So thank you for that. I
Right.
I wanted to ask something a little bit different. You mentioned about an illness trying to tell you something, and you've talked a little bit about there's some type of, and the term blockage I think is what you use, and maybe for the audience, because I don't know that I'll be able to describe a blockage as well as you can, but you actually do something that I hadn't thought that you should, which is you give that illness attention. I would say in a positive way, not "gosh, I'm sick" or "this is never going to get better." But it sounds like, and maybe I want to hear you kind of say this in your own words, but you have an approach about how to give this positive attention. My words, not yours. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What does that positive attention to an illness mean to you?
So I encourage my clients to express gratitude
Okay.
toward their body. So a great example of this was a few years back. A friend of mine called and she said, "Well, oh, I've got this horrible cold. I think I might have a bit of a fever, and I'm out. I'm down on the couch. Just feel horrible." And I said, "Well, would you like me to walk you through a visualization?" She said, "Sure." Okay, put the phone on speaker, get comfortable and relax. And so I walked her through a visualization where she was acknowledging each part of her body
Okay.
and helping it to relax, and then we work in gratitude. So first of all, appreciate your body for everything it's done for you over the years. I mean, how many times do you stop and thank your feet for carrying you for how many years you've been walking, right?
I have never done it,
Nobody does
but I'll do it
that.
now. Right.
Have express gratitude toward your legs for the strength that they have, and your digestive tract for all that it does to keep you nourished. So anyway, we wrapped it up, and she was just like, "Wow, I never felt so good about my own body." So we take our bodies for granted, even though people will say, "Well, yeah, the body's the temple of the soul, and you need to take care of the body." And I do the best that I can. I work out and all that. But do you really acknowledge your body? Do you
Right.
thank your eyes for everything, all the beauty that you get to see every day? Do
Yeah.
you thank your mouth for allowing you to taste and eat all the delicious food that you eat? Your ears for the beautiful music and the sound of the birds. Yeah, I don't think most people do that.
Simple acts of gratitude,
Mhm.
even for the meal you're about to eat or the blade of
Mhm.
grass that you get to see when you walk outside, your eyes for seeing. And, I'd imagine for some people watching this, they may, they might think, I mean, sure, I could do that, but you're describing something that makes a bigger difference and could be just one step towards many other things. And I think, I kind of want to say this here. You'd mentioned about, when you were on your journey for a long time, 7 years, I believe, where it was, hey, this is what'll fix you or treat this symptom, take this pill. And that's an immediate thing to think is going to help. Um, Gratitude is also an immediate thing. I just don't know that everyone wants to embrace it. I mean, is there really much cost to have 9 seconds of gratitude or a second of gratitude before you eat a piece of fruit or anything like that? I mean, that's kind of what I hear you saying, Teresa. I mean, those seem like, kind of simple, foundational table stake things that you can get into a regular routine of.
Yeah, so you touched on a couple of things there. So in my case, the doctors were so busy silencing my symptoms that I
Yeah.
was on a cocktail of pharmaceuticals, and eventually that caused a breakdown. A literal breakdown for me.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry.
luckily, the people around me that cared about me recognized it because my mind was out of it.
Right.
And, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's where I said, no more drugs. We
Right.
got to find a better way. You can
Yeah.
express gratitude when you're in the shower, and as you're washing your body or toweling off,
Yeah.
express gratitude. Or when you're trying to go to sleep at night, take a minute to express gratitude. Just, this body is carrying around a lot of stuff. So, so pay it a little attention, a little positive attention, and it will serve you even better.
You mentioned one there that I do now. And I started doing it not pretty recently, but I express gratitude in my own way every time before I fall asleep. I put
Excellent.
my hands together or I put them on my heart, which is a me thing. Um, and I just express gratitude until basically I fall asleep. And that's, um, I've gotten in such a rhythm of it now. As odd as it might sound, I look forward to it. Um, I look forward to
Excellent.
expressing that gratitude and just saying thank you for the opportunity of today and all the gifts it has brought me, and thank you for the opportunity tomorrow. That's as simple as it is for me. Um, I want to take you in a different direction slightly. So you've talked a bit about too over time, you and I, and in some of the books that you've written, you seem to be a pretty big advocate of journaling. And some people might roll their eyes. Do I really want to write in a journal? Maybe it's email, maybe it's whatever works for them. But I have some questions because on the first conversation and the first episode was with a dear friend of mine, and he's explained it as he has a tote full of journals that he's written, and so he used that kind of as his own mechanism, if you will, to write. Um, I know who he's writing to in those journals, but I'd like to ask you, in your opinion, when you are talking with a client, you're talking with me, you're talking with anyone watching this, um, if they can get their, heart around journaling, whatever context, who do you think you're writing to in that journal? Does it matter who you're writing to? Is it different for people? Can you expand on a little bit if you're interested?
Yeah, so I don't think it matters at all who you are writing to. I think you could be writing to yourself. You could be writing to spirit. Um, so I think what you're referencing is my book, The Resilience Journal, which was published in April of 2020, and it was designed to help people
Yeah.
cope with the stress of
Right.
being locked in and away from
Yep.
people.
Yeah.
And so it had 9 steps for you to complete every day, and those included things like reach out to someone, you know. And then there was a page to journal. So my recommendation is if it were me, I would journal in the morning and I would write about the previous day, because the day is over and now you can look at it more objectively
Yeah.
and journal, what was good and maybe, what you would like to see different for the coming days. Um,
So you're saying journal in the morning of the previous day, kind of assessing what it was, what it wasn't, to kind of set you up for success in that current day. Is that what
A
I
better
heard you?
day. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Okay.
You could journal at night. You could journal about the day that you just experienced at night.
Yeah.
Um, um, yeah, I'm having a little memory block here. The book was actually dedicated to Anne Frank,
Okay. Yeah.
and from the World War, and she referred to her journal as her best friend.
Wow. I did
So
not know that.
yeah, she referred to her journal as her best friend. So you know, you can write to whoever you want. You can write
Yeah.
to yourself, to spirit, to your best friend, however you want that to work. Whatever, we're such a diverse population. I am of the mindset where I don't believe that there's one set philosophy for everyone.
Right.
You have to find your own niche and then follow that path. So what I did to get better might not be exactly what someone else needs to do to get better.
I understand. Yeah. This makes me think of, actually makes me think of social media, but this is sort of a me thing. So, I tend to kind of write longer posts, not all the time, on X, which is just kind of my preferred place. And if I'm reading a book or I'm thinking about something, if an idea pops in my head, I will tend to put it on X, not because I think everyone is going to see it or follow it or whatever else. It might not resonate with anyone. I almost look at it as like notes that are public that I can kind of search up. And if it helps one person, wonderful. If it doesn't help anyone, but it helped me kind of get it out of my, get it out of my heart, get it out of my mind, then good too. And it kind of takes me, I wanted to go back just because of that to, you mentioned about social media and political situations kind of pulling us lower and keeps us in sickness. Do you feel that that affects the clients that you work with day to day now? More recently, I know you mentioned a little bit back in 2020, and I totally understand the lockdown. So if I can kind of pull you forward to now, do you see, in whatever level you're comfortable with sharing, is there particular situations that seem to like give you trends as to what people really get mired in? Or is it still just a variety of things? What do you kind of see just as trends for you that people get really affected by now, in your opinion?
So if a person comes to me for mind, body, spirit healing, I want to know how much social media per week, how much news per week, how much drama per week you're
Mm,
consuming,
yeah,
because that's part of your mental diet, and that has to go. Okay,
right,
you cannot heal if you continue.
right,
You can't heal your foot if you continue to smack it with a sledgehammer every day.
right,
So that has to go.
right,
Okay.
right,
So, and again, we're bombarded with it. For years, we've been bombarded with CNN in the airports. You go into an
yeah,
airport, and everywhere you turn, there's another TV with the news, and your subconscious mind is so incredibly powerful. You may
right,
not be able to read those lips, but your subconscious mind does. Your mind is absorbing every ounce of that,
right,
and the powers that be, they know that they're doing this to you on purpose.
right,
Okay, they're keeping you in a state of fight or flight.
yeah.
So all of that's got to go. So did I answer your question?
Yes, you did, and you moved me right into what I was going to ask you next. So
It's funny how that keeps happening, doesn't it?
I know. I know. So several years ago now, you wrote a blog, and I can remind you kind of the context of it if you'd like. But um, what does it mean to be actively disengaged? And the four categories that you mentioned, and you kind of mentioned this in the airport too, and the powers that be, whatever that means to everyone, knows this. So there's kind of four stages or phases, I guess anyone could be in. So actively disengaged, engaged, and actively engaged. And I'm not asking you to give me a definition of those four, but in the context of social media or being in an airport and seeing something on the screen and you can't tell even what they're saying, but you're seeing the body language, you see some of the headlines, and how does that distract us, pull us in negative directions that otherwise we might not be? And at the top of our conversation, you talked about subconscious and how that will work on you over time without you realizing it. I would just like for you to kind of just talk a little bit about that active disengagement and what that means and what it can do to people.
So my business logo is less fear, more flow.
Okay.
Okay, when you can accomplish that, less fear, then you've got more flow in your life. So someone
Yeah.
who is actively disengaged, they are hovering right around that level one victim mentality. They
Yeah.
feel that they have no control over life, and they just go through the steps.
Right.
Okay, so they get up in the morning and they shower, have coffee, maybe walk the dog, go to work, they have really no interest in their job except for it's nothing more than a paycheck. So they
Yeah.
do what they have to do, so that they can then go home, have some dinner, open some beers and sit in front of the television until it's
Right.
time to go to bed. So
I'm just
they're
gonna.
just on autopilot,
Right.
and so the goal is to get off autopilot and
Yeah.
become engaged, become um, to have a feeling of power over your life, to
Right.
be able to say, I'm a powerful manifester, and I'm going to use my life to manifest my heart's desires.
It's
And
beautiful.
yeah, and so the other thing that I'd like to mention about the televisions in the airport and everywhere you go, is your subconscious mind is, if there's a car accident or a plane crash, we've been seeing a lot of plane crashes lately.
Right.
Your subconscious mind is taking all of that in, and
Yeah.
it's turning on the fight or flight response, which is turning off your immune system,
Right.
um, and opening you up for a chronic health condition.
Yeah.
So it's really important for people to realize that. I remember when I was living in North Carolina, um, I was at the gym because I'm self-employed. I get to go, in the
Right.
middle of the day when, when no one's
Right.
there.
Right.
And there were two TVs. One had CNN and the other one had Fox. Well, I happened to know the director, and I spoke
Okay.
to her and I said, could you please, if not turn it off, change
Right.
the channel? And she
Right.
said, I can't. I'm mandated. I am mandated to have these two stations on.
Wow.
So, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but you're being
Go
programmed.
ahead.
You're
Right.
being programmed, okay?
Right.
And it's all a complex system. And again, you read my book,
Right.
it's a complex system that's designed to keep you in fight or flight, which then deactivates your immune system, and then you get sick, and then you go to the doctor, and the doctor prescribes you a pill, and big pharma wins that game because
Right.
now they have a customer.
That's right.
So that's how the system is designed.
Right. Yeah. I totally agree. We could talk on that probably for probably for a long time.
Yeah.
I wanted to take you in a little bit of a different place. Back looking at the seven levels, which I love that you've kind of described that, because that kind of helped me. I didn't really understand the meditative piece and how up until you and I talking here, I thought, well, you always want to stay in that. Now it makes sense why you wouldn't. That was a
You
little
can't.
naive. Well, not a little. It was naive of me. You have talked about previously about level 4. And I'm not going to say anything more about level 4. I want the audience to kind of hear you talk about level 4, about why it's great to be there and why there's some things that you need to be mindful of at level
Yeah.
4. Do you see where I'm leading you?
I know exactly where we're going here.
All right.
Okay. So level 4 we call caregiver energy. And a medium amount of level 4 energy is good because it means that you care about yourself and you care about the people around you. Too much level 4 energy is not good because that's an indication that you're doing for everyone else and you're putting yourself last.
Right.
Um,
Yourself last, you said, right?
yeah, I
Yeah.
just got a warning on my screen.
You
You can
just cut
still,
out for you just cut out for just a moment, but yeah. So you
okay, so
said,
you can still hear me. Okay.
yeah, I can still
Um,
hear.
so, um, so in my practice, when someone comes to me with a full-blown chronic health condition, the
Yeah.
first thing I do is I ask them to take the Energy Leadership Index assessment. And
Okay.
that helps us to determine how much energy they have in each of the 7 levels.
Yeah.
And across the board in my practice, people who have a chronic health condition always have level 4 energy as their primary level of energy.
Yeah.
And what this tells me is they're too busy taking care of everyone else and they're not taking care of themselves. It also tells me that they have very poor boundaries. Okay.
Right.
the people just walk all over them. And this plays out professionally as well as at home.
I
So
keep
does that
hearing,
help?
yes, it does. And it's not just from you. I call this synchronicity, but it's just where I think I'm at. I have heard boundaries and it being important to them. It's not that I hadn't heard it before, but in the last couple weeks, I have heard that more in real life on other shows. My friend Seti, who has one, and we talked about it. He talked about it. You are either, maybe it's just for me, maybe I need to revisit my boundaries, or just maybe just in general, kind of people now. And I'd love to hear from the audience if anyone wants to reach out either on X or elsewhere about, are they hearing about boundaries more and healthy boundaries and knowing when to say yes and also when to say no. I'll tell you, Teresa, I I finally got to a point about a year later of thinking I would to do this, a show or something, and I thought that I'd possibly sort of kind of be asked to come on someone else's show and just talk, or maybe it was an X space, nothing big, nothing grandiose, but I thought, well, eventually someone will ask, and I was good with that. And then I came to realize that someone is me,
Mhm.
that I'm just going to do it. And, I wouldn't have anticipated that, but it was. And I asked, I'll share this. I think Seti would be fine with it. But just before I did this, only 3 episodes in, I asked him if I could join his. Not in any formal kind of situation, but I just said, I want to help. I want to help. And I had this, again, I think I was level 4, it was caretaker. And I didn't have the boundary to realize what was about to happen. He, in his own kind way, said, no, you should do your own thing. And it didn't hurt me. It actually felt natural. And then the next conversation I had with him, which was a couple days later, and I tend to adjust fairly decently, and I thanked him for saying no. And I said, it might have been really hard to say no to me because you've known me so long, you know how much I care about you. And thank you for the strength and for the boundary of telling me no. And he said, you're welcome. I very much am learning about boundaries for me. My wife tells me all the time I need to learn about, saying no. And so I praised him for telling me no, because I wouldn't be sitting here right now if not. Do you see those examples happening often where caretakers in level 4, they immediately think I have got to be the savior. I have this savior mentality that I'll worry about me some other time. Does sort of my experience, does that kind of resonate with others that you know of, or even yourself?
That's exactly it. And as you and I have been getting to know one another through our communications, I see
Yeah.
the level 4 energy in you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Um, it's
Were you
nice.
ever,
It,
sorry, I was going to
it's
ask, do
go
you
ahead.
have, did you, over the time of knowing me, I'm just asking an honest question, give me to me direct and everyone can hear it. Were you worried about my level 4 and
No,
were kind of observing? Okay.
yeah, just observing,
Okay.
and you have to understand that as a trained practitioner in the energy levels, I
Right.
can easily assess most people,
Yeah.
um, and remember that's not judgment.
I know. Oh, I don't take it
That's
personal.
that's an assessment, okay? But
Yeah.
I could see the level 4 energy in you,
Yeah.
and again, it's not all bad.
Right.
There's a healthy amount of level 4 energy, so that means
Yeah.
making the world a beautiful place for other people.
Can,
But you can't walk the walk for them. You have to show them
right.
how to
How
walk the walk.
how do you help people? Um, can you talk a little bit more about how you help people establish that? Because I think even on like social media, and there's people that I know, people that um, I'm in my own way helping them. Not that I'm in my own way. Um, I can tell that they want to save everything, and I love that about them. They've got a huge heart. They're coming from the heart, and I try and work on sort of nudging them in a direction, not that I'm right or wrong, the badness or goodness of it, but that balance I think that you talk about. Can you spend a little bit of time talking about how to get a person to establish a healthy level 4 boundary where they are helping, they're contributing, but they also can just share light, even if light is just being the person that you are. Are there things or tools you try and arm them with?
Yeah. So one thing is um, looking at the situation
Yeah.
and saying, how can I make this better for both of us?
Right.
So a person might say, well, I need better boundaries, and so I'm going to say no.
Yeah.
Saying no is not always the best approach.
Right.
Okay, and I'm fairly certain there's a blog. Yeah, there's a blog on my website about boundaries.
Okay.
Um, um, and it's really important to remember that, let's say you've had poor boundaries most of your life, and now you've watched this program and you've decided, I'm going to change my boundaries.
Yeah.
I need healthier boundaries. Well, the first thing you need to do is define what it is that you really need. If you're a mom and a wife and you work, what is it that you need from your family so that you're not running yourself into the ground?
Yeah.
So each person has to figure out what it is they need. Maybe you're a single person and you're in a relationship, but you're not feeling the love from your partner.
Yeah.
So again, define what it is that you need. And then the next step is it's not about saying no. It's about saying, how can we do this differently so that we both win?
Right. Right.
Okay. So instead of mom coming home and saying, I'm not cooking tonight, I'm so tired of cooking for all of you people, somebody needs to cook for me. It's more about how can we create a situation here where we all win?
Yeah. What
And
do
then
you,
you have to give people space.
yeah.
All right. Because it's really important to recognize that people treat you how you've trained them to treat you.
Right.
And expecting them to change overnight is not realistic.
Right.
So, so you're going to have to give them some space to recognize that the game has changed
Yeah.
and we don't play that way anymore.
Yeah. There's two things that I kind of want to sort of expand on here, and you can decide if you want to add to it. Compassion is a big thing that I feel like you're talking about, and love. I'd say unconditional love, where you need to know, and it takes time. I think it takes intuition of knowing when you are helping a person, but you're also helping them when you kind of let them kind of go through some lumps, and you can kind of watch them from afar a little bit. Um, those kind of things I think take time, and I I'd love to hear if you agree or disagree with this, but there isn't necessarily an instruction manual that says, okay, well, you love them directly and you're compassionate. You tell them what to do up until this point, and then you can let them go. It seems like more of a balance between, and you're observing and you're assessing. You help a little less, you help a little more. Do you think that's the case, or do you think there's a little bit more of like a more scientific approach to it as
No, I
far as?
think that's perfectly said. Life is an ongoing journey, and so people are going to have different needs
Yeah.
over the course of their relationships. And so you'll have to adjust
Right.
as your needs change and as the people you care about and the people you work with, as their needs change as
Yeah.
well. So sometimes you will be more helpful.
It's interesting to me, and I used to think, probably in my 20s and maybe more recently, but I used to, I think, have this mentality without realizing it, that the other people around me are static, meaning that they're finite. They don't change. I'm the only one changing, which is a very, inward in a bad way to look at it. Oh, well, I'm going to adjust, and they're the same person they were last week, or the same person they were 10 years ago. Kind of the same reason why I asked you to introduce yourself and decide for yourself, advocate what you wanted to talk about as an introduction for yourself. Um, I've since moved away from that, and I think, just an opinion, that some people still think, well, that person hasn't changed. And you're describing it really eloquently, I think, about everyone's making adjustments constantly. So you have to be really actively engaged, I would say, to know how those relationships happen. You can't just kind of go on autopilot, like you mentioned. Is there anything else
Yeah.
you want to add to that? And
Well,
go ahead.
yeah, looking at those that you work with and saying nobody's going to change, that's pretty judgmental.
Yeah. Yeah. And you didn't know me in my 20s, but yeah, I wasn't, I
That's pretty
wasn't
judgmental. So,
the best person to be around. And I probably wouldn't have taken that well, hearing it from you. Not, it's nothing against you. I just,
right, right,
anyway, me is another story.
right. You
Thankfully, I'm
probably
a
would
little,
have been
little
like,
different
"What do
now.
you mean? What do
Right.
you mean?" But
Right.
they are.
Right.
So,
Right. That's the goal I was moving towards. So if now the goalpost is moved, now what do I do?
right.
Uh,
Right. So when you open that lens and you take each individual for the person that they are and why they might be struggling,
yeah.
then that opens up a whole new way for you to engage, not necessarily help, but a way for you to engage. I like to say, and I see this, I see this on social media a lot. Okay, anytime you take a group of people and put them in one bucket and smack a label on it,
Right.
that's judgment.
Yep. I couldn't agree
Those
more.
people will never change.
Right.
Um, that's judgment. Yeah.
Right. Yep. I agree. Well said. I've got, Teresa, one more question for you. It's also from let me just look here. I'm looking down. Um, it's from a blog on your website, which again, teresabruni.com. I'll put it on the video after I upload it. And it is called, "And Then It Happened, a Stone in My Pond."
Yeah.
Um,
Great
and
blog.
do you want to go ahead and kind of, just in your own words, kind of explain? I have a couple questions to ask, but I'd
Yeah.
like to give the floor to you. I've talked a little more than I'd want to last little bit. I was sharing, so thank you. But
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about why that's important to you, and why it resonates, why you wrote about it?
Yeah. Because it happens a lot and people don't recognize how it plays into their ability to manifest.
Yeah.
So what that blog talks about is how what other people think about us plays out in our life. And it tells a story. I think that blog is a couple years old, I believe. Um,
2022. Yeah.
yeah, so it's based on a book that I read that tells a story about um, a young girl who had just finished school and was interviewing, and she had three job prospects. And of course, there was one that she really, really, really wanted,
Right.
and it's based on the principle: don't tell anyone what you're trying to manifest. Um,
Mhm.
because they might throw a stone in your pond.
Right.
And so her mother, loving her daughter unconditionally and not wanting to see her hurt, is thinking to herself, I don't think she's going to get that top job.
Yeah.
And so now she's putting out that vibration, right?
Oh.
And so so you've got your pond, that's your manifestation area,
Right.
and you've thrown your stone in and the ripples are moving closer and closer and closer to the shore. When someone else throws into their stone into your pond, it messes up all the vibration, all the ripples,
Right.
and it prevents your ripples from reaching the shore. So it's really important to align yourself with people who believe in you and believe that you can manifest your goals. And that I know I don't remember what situation I was. I think I had set some health goals in that blog.
Yeah.
I don't remember
Uh,
what it was a
I'll.
while ago, but my friend, what had happened was, um, 2 weeks later, my friend said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I did pretty well, except I missed this." And she was like, "Well, I had a feeling you were, setting yourself
Uh,
up for
right,
failure," which I hadn't looked at it as failure,
right.
So
Oh my God.
so be careful who you tell about what it is you're trying to manifest. That's
Yeah.
what that blog is about.
So I guess part of why I'm thinking about this, and you kind of answered it better because some of the things I had a little confused, which is, kind of something I do sometimes. If you're not really resolute in not taking things personal or hearing judgments and letting them kind of bounce off of you, then it's probably best to kind of do your own thing, kind of tell people after you do it if you know it's going to affect you. If you know it won't affect you and you're manifesting and, whatever they kind of say to you, it's just a piece that you're going to use something positively. Is that kind of what you're trying to get across, that, be careful what you're sharing, only in as much as your support group is your support group, and that's great. But from another standpoint, you got to be sort of careful what you put out into the ether and what they kind of send back to you if you're listening.
Well, well, there's a law of manifestation that's old, hundreds of years old, that talks about don't tell people your plans until they're manifested.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why. That's the theory behind that, so that they
Right.
can't diffuse your manifestation.
Right.
Like imagine you have this beautiful goal and it's lofty, but you feel pretty good about it. And
Right.
then, your best friend says to you, "I think you're kidding yourself. I don't think you're ever going to make that goal." Well, now you're all depressed, right? And now you're
Right.
starting to second guess yourself.
Yep.
So they just threw a stone in your pond. So that rule has been around for a long, long time. And
Yeah.
it may even be mentioned in the Bible. Don't tell anyone your manifestation goals until they begin to develop, until they begin to bloom. Um, you just
This
got to
make
be very careful.
this makes me want to ask you if you're comfortable with saying then. So you talked about a corporate job that you enjoyed, very much for what, for what it was. And then this track was, I assume, very different. I don't want to assume, but I would imagine trying to do both, or when you balance that or anything. So did you practice this as well when you were kind of making that change over to what you do now as a day-to-day job from corporate? In other words, did you tell family members? Did you tell other people this is what I'm going to do? Did you get stones in your pond from it, or did you just do it kind of sight unseen without sharing with anyone?
Um, so you're going to get this because this is something you and I talked about when we first met,
Okay.
when we first started, having conversation. Um, um, when the universe wants you to move into another direction,
Right.
it will literally pull the rug out from under you. So something will happen, like you'll lose your job. Okay.
Yeah. Imagine that.
And so for me, I mean, I had a business. I was in technology. I had a web development business,
Yes.
and I was no longer fulfilled. Like
Right.
technology and art always fulfilled me.
Yeah.
And web design allowed me to use both my technical brain and my right brain, my artistic brain. So it's a beautiful blend for me. And I was happy
Yeah.
for many, many years. And
Yeah.
then suddenly it just wasn't fulfilling anymore.
Right.
And so I tried something else, and that was a complete disaster. Um, and then I was just standing there kind of lost, going, well,
Right.
what do I do now?
Yeah.
And it was, I think it was an ad on Google that popped up one day about this coaching institute.
Okay.
And so I contacted them. I had no intention of making coaching my career.
Right.
That kind of sounded silly.
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
but they promised me that if I enrolled in the program, my life would change, and my life definitely needed to change.
Yeah.
So that's how that happened. So it wasn't about telling or not telling.
Yeah.
It was about the universe pulling the rug out from under me, and me feeling totally lost in the world,
Yeah.
and not knowing what direction to go. And and then up pops this ad on the internet,
And you were
which
paying attention to it and you saw
leads
it.
me to the work that I do today. So that's
Right.
how all of that worked out.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. If you're good with it, I think we'll kind of conclude with that. I love that story, how the universe is just going to pull you. You pay attention. For anyone listening out there, if you kind of feel that you're in, a similar situation to maybe Teresa, what she described, or what she kind of described a little bit about me, think for yourself as to what you may want to do next. It might be one step in the next moment, or the next hour, or the next week, could be years from now. Just know you're not alone. You're watching us here. You're seeing us talk. You aren't alone, even if you feel like you are. All right, Teresa, do you mind hanging on for a little bit?
No, that's fine.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks,
for
everyone.
allowing me to share this space with you.
You are very welcome. I appreciate you very much. I hope to be able to talk you into coming back. So I appreciate you.
I love
Thank
that.
you. All right. Bye, everyone.